And, there was all kinds of efforts to try and change the image of the United States to be one that is more socially liberal, and then in doing so, kind of steal the thunder of the communists, and really to create a sense of ambiguity. And this shows up if you read a lot of CIA writing from the 50s. If you read about, for example, there's a very good book called The Search for the Manchurian Candidate, and it talks about CIA brainwashing and how it worked. And they discovered, during the Korean War, a lot of American GIs would go and fight in the Korean War. They'd get captured. They'd go to the prisoner of war camp, and they would become communists, right? This happened. Thousands of U.S. GIs became communists. And the CIA realized the guys who became communists in the POW camps were the ones who were the most, dedicated, the most patriotic, the most deeply conservative. They were the ones who ultimately became communists, while the more liberal ones were the ones who never really became communists, right? And that they realized that this kind of dualistic thinking that says there's right or wrong, there's actually truth in the world, God forbid, that leads people to, if push comes to shove, they might change to be a communist. But if you introduce into the world this idea that there's no truth, that right and wrong don't exist, that everything's simply a matter of opinion, if you do that, then it's very hard to convince people of anything, right? And that postmodernism and this kind of liberalizing U.S. culture to get people to believe there is no truth, there is no reality, everything's a matter of opinion, was a way of preventing, if there was some kind of crisis in the United States, people from becoming communists. And that was happening already in the black community. Many black people were very angry at the American government because of Jim Crow and such. And so it was just considered automatic on their part to become communists, right? The Civil Rights Congress was started by the Communist Party. W.E.B. Du Bois was a communist. Paul Robeson was a communist. I mean, the communists had been talking about the civil rights issue. It was a big problem. The CIA is like, oh my gosh, all the black people, when they get mad at the American government, they become communists. Let's create a way that they can be critical of the American government, but not become communists. And that's what this covert CIA funding of leftism was all about. And a lot of leftists are very naive and almost in denial about this. They want to pretend that this didn't happen. They want to pretend like, no, the CIA, they're all Republicans, and no. I mean, there is a liberal wing of the American establishment. There is the Rockefellers, and now Silicon Valley is very much an outgrowth of that Eastern establishment that has its own energy, and that there is a faction within the ruling class of the United States that is very liberal, I guess, but is very, very destructive and very, very dangerous, and is kind of hell-bent on fomenting some kind of dangerous global revolution. And that's a concern. And, Kamala Harris is very, very closely tied into some very, very dangerous people. And the Hillary Clinton State Department did a huge amount of damage in the world. There's no question about it. We're still picking up the pieces. They overthrew the government. The government of Honduras was violently overthrown in 2009, and now, look, I mean, people are piling on our border trying to get out of a country that now has the world's highest murder rate since it's been opened up to the free market. The overthrow of the government of Libya, which had the highest life expectancy on the African continent, has now been reduced to rubble and chaos, and people are drowning in the Mediterranean trying to get out. Syria reduced to civil war. I mean, the amount of death and suffering and chaos fomented by the Hillary Clinton State Department is massive. But, in their minds, they did a great job, right? They're spreading freedom around the world. This is the permanent global revolution to spread the ideals of freedom and create the open international system. It's very disturbing stuff.